Hello, my friends. Hello. Welcome back. We got another episode, Guardians Daily. Big exciting one. Why so exciting, you might be asking? Tough loss last night. Couldn't get it going. Couldn't pull it off in the ninth inning last night. Had runners on the corners. A lot of things to be frustrated about with this team right now. Why so excited? Well, I'll tell you why. Travis Bazzana is here. It's time. Cleveland Guardians have called up their number one prospect, former number one overall pick in the 2024 MLB draft, Travis Bazzana. Exciting young player, one of the top names in all of baseball. We've been waiting on it. It's been time earlier than we expected, honestly, this season. Based on the Guardians' track record and how things have gone in the past, really did not think it would be this early in the season, but he's been playing much better. He got off to a kind of a slow start this year in AAA. He was banged up last year, you know, and kind of injured. Then, that really slowed down his progression and where we thought his timeline would be in terms of getting him to the big leagues. There was a chance he was going to be on that postseason roster at the end of last season had things gone differently with his health and everything like that. But here we are today, April 28th, 2026. Travis Bazzana is here, and it's time. He's going to be making his debut. Going to be playing second base. He's going to be the new full-time second baseman, I imagine. You don't bring this guy up to have him sitting on the bench. If he's here, he's going to be playing every day, getting those reps, getting comfortable, finding himself in this lineup. So excited about that, and it's an exciting time. They was coming off a tough loss last night. There was a lot of stuff I want to just touch on last night real quick. Kind of frustrating. They had a good lead earlier. Tanner Parker Messick was great again last night. Man, he's been so good. Want to just give a little Messick talk. I know Bazan is the big name. This is the exciting thing. That's why we're watching this episode. Want to touch a little on last night while we're here, though. With Bazana, with Messick, he was awesome last night. The bullpen let him down again. That's been a problem lately. And then in the bottom of the ninth inning, I know they were a little short-handed on the bench. Brito was the only guy left, but you get Kyle Manzardo on and you don't run for him. I just didn't get that. You had Juan Brito, who's much faster on the bench. And also, Manzardo was DHing. It wasn't like you needed any, it wasn't going to affect your fielding and things like that. So you don't run for him. Chase DeLauter, who hit the ball hard every time last night, was not getting rewarded for it. Does get rewarded, ripped a double down into the right field corner. And I think Juan Brito has a very good chance. At least maybe there's a play at the plate there. Manzardo was busting it to get to third, but had no chance of scoring. Then you have second and third, one out, George Valera up. First off, if you got a sac fly opportunity there, that's all you needed to tie it. I don't think Manzardo's the guy you want sprinting on home for it. So, but they still left Manzardo out there. I don't get it. That didn't even come into play because then George Valera had a brutal strikeout. The closer for the Rays has a filthy changeup, and that changeup got him, put away Valera, and then it put away Schneeman. So that ended the game last night, and you're thinking, man, this is just kind of a bummer of a night. You're going to bed angry with this baseball team. Where are we going? We've just lost the back-to-back series. We're falling apart. And Travis Bazzana, boom, mic drop. Jeff Passan puts it out. Here comes Travis. And now you got Bazzana time in Cleveland. It's going to be a bonanza, a Bazzana, a bazooka. We're going to put all the nicknames, all the things you want to do with that fun last name. And a little bit of background on Bazzana. So he's a 23-year-old left-handed bat. He's going to play second base. He's hitting about 287 in AAA from Australia. Good day, mate. I won't do the accent, though. That's going to be his thing. And people seem to love this kid's motor, his energy he plays with on the field. So a lot to be excited about there. People say he's a leader at Oregon State. He was one of the best players in college baseball. And obviously, yeah, there was a lot of options for that number one pick. JJ Weatherholt was a top option as well. Obviously, we saw him a couple weeks ago in St. Louis. He killed the guards at the plate and made some spectacular plays in the field. And that was a guy I did an episode that day talking about the comparison between those two guys and what you get with Bazzana versus what Weatherholt brings for St. Louis and how far behind it felt like Bazzana was to even getting to the big leagues. And here we are less than a month later, and he's making his debut tonight. So that's an exciting thing. I really just, based on the past and how the Guardians have been with their top prospects and how they've kind of coddled, and they also the contract manipulation and things of that nature. I really didn't expect to see Bazana this early in the year, but I'm excited. I'm jacked up about it though. I'm excited. This is what this team really needed right now was a little bit of juice, and he can bring that. He's an energetic player. He's a five-tool player. He hits for power. He can hit all parts of the ballpark. He'll go the opposite way. He does it all going left. He'll go to right. He can go to left center, and he's got a nice swing that way as well. Can hit it out, but also he's just going to hit for average. Also, he's just a smooth he looks like a smooth baseball player. He runs the bases well. He does all that little stuff. Obviously, second base, not the most premium position, especially for like a guy who was the number one pick. You expect that to be like maybe an outfield prospect or a shortstop or like a big power hitting first baseman. But a second baseman, you don't see that as often. But that's his spot, and he's not like one of these guys. I don't think he's ever making the move to short, especially with obviously Rocchio's been really good at that spot, and then even Arias, if he comes back, who knows what that'll be now with his situation. But he's a shortstop as well. So I think Pisana, his spot is second base for this team. I think that's where he likes to play, and I think he's gonna be playing there a lot the rest of the year. And where does he find his way into this order? We'll get to in a second with Stephen Kwan slumping. But I think this is overall just a time. What went from a bummer of a night last night in a game they played good enough to win. Parker Messick pitched well enough to get the win last night, and they couldn't pull it out, even though they had a really good opportunity in the bottom of the ninth. And you're kind of down on this team right now, even though we're right at 500. Bazana's here. Your top guy, your number one overall pick is here. It's a time to get excited. I expect there to be a little extra life in the ballpark tonight. Tuesday night game against Tampa Bay. They don't have any fans in the area. What are you going to expect? But I think Bazana, they're going to bring a little energy to the game tonight. And I think it's going to be really exciting for this team. What is this guy really going to look like? What's he going to bring to this lineup? And I'm curious, do we see him kind of approach that top of the order, that leadoff spot? He's got the makeup of a leadoff hitter. And I think that's where I see him playing long term. Like, it's going to be in that part of a lineup. Maybe even or like a two-hole. Obviously, DeLauder's found his zone there. Angel Martinez has been really good in that spot as well. So I'm curious to see how things go with where they put him in the lineup. Probably not going to put him in that spot tonight, but I think he's a leadoff hitter. And also, the guy currently who's been hitting leadoff for the past 4 years for the Guardians, Stephen Kwan, struggling. He's in a slump right now. They gave him a couple days off this weekend to try and see if he could find it and get back to the player he's been throughout his career. And it's just not there right now. He's not, his at bat quality is down. He's swinging at missing at a lot of stuff. He's chasing, which, if you remember, Stephen Kwan is known for having one of the best eyes at the plate, one of the best whiff rate. He doesn't swing and miss at the plate. And he also just doesn't really strike out much at all. And all three of those things are what is killing him right now. He's swinging and missing at a lot of pitches. He's not, his eye is not there. He's also just missing some stuff on the outside part, especially when you thought he was a guy that coming into this year, I thought the challenges and the ABS system was really going to benefit, considering everything he's done in terms of last year. They made a big point about the stat. He got the most outside strikes that were really balls called against him in Major League Baseball. That outside edge, he's got such a good eye out there, at least in his career he has, that he was getting that call against him, even though he knew it wasn't really a strike. I thought this was going to be the year that would really be a benefit for him with this ABS and him being able to take that and not get that pitch against him as much. But not the case. He's struggling right now. He has not been the player he has been throughout his career so far for this team this season at the top of the order and hasn't brought that consistency. And now he's just in a slump. He didn't look like himself. He kind of looked, and for a guy who plays with so much, he has fun, he's loose, he's playing, obviously, he's still playing a gold glove in the outfield. I think maybe, and it seems like odd that it was, but we've seen this with players in the past. A position change in the field can really affect your performance at the plate. And I know he's been a gold glover the last 3 years in left field. He's playing center field most of the days now. And he's doing a great job in center as well. He's as good of an outfielder as you're gonna find defensively. But maybe that is throwing a little bit of thing. Maybe that threw him off a little bit, routine wise, whatever it may be, and it's maybe that's affected things at the plate. Also, you got to think mentally his contract situation has affected things. How long is he going to be in Cleveland? Obviously, he was one of the hottest names at the trade deadline last season, and that didn't end up happening. Obviously, Guardians fans at the time were very excited that the Quan trade did not go through, and he was still on this team for that stretch run last year. But maybe in hindsight, we look back at that as a missed opportunity. We missed a market, and we could have gotten some good stuff. Obviously, the Dodgers were a team in discussions. Dalton Rushing was a name I heard multiple times in Quan talks last year. He's been unreal for them. He might still be available. You never know because they got Will Smith there. But that was a big thing for Quan last year. And he didn't trade him. And he wasn't even great down the stretch last year. Even though the rest of the team was, that was Quan actually struggled really much so down the stretch last year and into that postseason series. And he's kind of just picked it up this year as well. So a lot of concern about Quan. Is it time with this Bazana move? Do you consider, hey, do we move Bazana up in the lineup? Do we take Quan out of that leadoff spot? I think right away is a little quick, like debut. You're hitting leadoff Travis tonight, but I think eventually that might be the move they make with this lineup in terms of Juan's been so good for years as your locked in leadoff hitter. He gets on base, he runs the bases, he does all the little stuff right. He's a pain in the butt to pitch to because he can just foul everything off. But once he's not doing that, which he hasn't been for months now, and he's just not because he just hasn't been a productive hitter at the plate. Why not? If Travis Bazzana is your future and Steven Kwan, based on the way everything looks contractually and just performance wise, is not going to be a part of your long term future. I'm not saying that's a guarantee. Hey, they could come out in a month right now. He gets on a red hot run, and then they sign this extension, and he's here for the next 7 years. And I'd be thrilled about that. I'd love to see that. I like Steven Kwan. This is not a we don't like Steven Kwan. We all love Steven Kwan here in Cleveland, but there is just an understanding way the way his contract sets up, the way this team's positioned going forward with who they have on their roster and in their minors and things like that. Also, there's been this narrative out there for the past couple of years, and I still think it's true. The fact Stephen Kwan wants to get back to the West Coast. He wants to get closer to home. And I think he's comfortable out there. Obviously, the Giants were a name we heard last year as well. I think he would have been very open and excited to that. And you hear it when we even go out, like we were in the Giants on that West Coast trip last year about Quan possibly making that move. So there's things to consider there with Quan and the way things, especially with Travis Bazzana now being on your actual big league roster, and he's going to be in that lineup somewhere. I think eventually, maybe not right away, but he's going to move into that leadoff spot. So really excited to see how things go with Bazzana, and also want to see Quan try and find his way back to being the all-star caliber player he's been, not just in the field, but also at the plate. So Tuesday, it's a big one. This is a big one for your Cleveland Guardians. You got Travis Bazzana. He's an exciting young player. I mean, like this is just this is a big deal to bring up. He was the number one pick in the draft for a reason. And now he's got a chance. We've seen all these other guys, Caglione for Kansas City. We've seen McGonigal for Detroit. These are all in the division guys who've already been from that class, who've already come up and made impacts for their teams. Now, Travis Bazzana, it's your turn. Show what you got. Bring that juice to Cleveland. Bring that Australian, that Aussie toughness to this Cleveland lineup. So I think we're getting a big one out of this team tonight. This is a big game for the Cleveland Guardians. And, home run wise, I've been on a little bit of a run. Not to toot my own horn, but I have. We hit David Fry on Friday. First home run of the year. So it's not like we're picking guys who are hitting them all over. He hit one out. Called that. Now, Daniel Schneemann, I said on yesterday's show, Schneemann, Oppo Blast, he gave a 2-run homer last night. Who's going deep tonight? Well, we've seen it, and this isn't the boldest pick because he's one of the team leaders. And he got off to that hot start, but he hasn't hit one in a while. But he's starting to come around and hit that ball hard again. I think we see the young guys make their moments tonight. Chase DeLauder, I think he's hitting one out tonight. And I think the Cleveland Guardians are getting a big win, going to tie up this series. Travis Bazzana time in Cleveland. Time to get excited and time to get things going for the Cleveland Guardians. I'm excited. I know you guys are too. Bazana, big day, big move for the Cleveland Guardians. Future is here, and it starts tonight at Progressive Field against the Tampa Bay Rays. Well, I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Go Guardians, and we'll be watching.